and welcome to Council Catch Up here on WSTO TV. I'm your host, Derek Westby, and just a reminder, you can watch WSTO TV on YouTube and Facebook. You can also watch it on your smart device apps, including Apple TV, Fire TV, and Roku devices, as well as your Android and iOS cell phones and tablets. We're here to talk about three different City Council meetings. We're going to start with the November 12th, 2024 City Council meeting. Welcome, Mayor Swadley.
Morning.
So on the November 12th meeting, there was a public hearing and discussion about the plat and zoning changes for STI. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. STI is Stoughton Trailers Incorporated, and as you might recall, they purchased about 180 acres out on the corner of Highway B and 51. The corporate headquarters has been under construction. They're making good strides. Things are on schedule. And the next steps is to do what we call a preliminary plat, which also includes zoning. And really what that does is identifies the areas that will be commercial or single-family homes or multifamily apartments or duplexes. So it basically kind of outlines where those areas will be within the development.
Okay. And then also on the November 12th City Council meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the budget for 2025.
Yeah, so the 2025 budget is, you might hear is another challenging year. The state imposed spending limits really minimizes what we can do as far as our operations part of our budget, which our operations part is mostly our people. 70% of that portion of the budget is wages and benefits, and then about 41% of that is for public safety, and then followed next by public works is about 14% of the budget. And so this year, when we went through the budget process, with the rising costs, especially on healthcare, our healthcare costs alone went up $178,000. We did have a record year for net new construction, so for our housing and commercial buildings that we put up. But even with a record year, we still fell short of the money we needed to really have a balanced budget. So what we decided to do was take a portion of our rainy day fund. We do have a healthy rainy day fund that's accumulated over the years to balance the budget. So we didn't have to, go and ask for a referendum. We had 4 communities in Dane County that went to the voters and asked for referendum dollars to exceed their operating limits. 3 of the 4 were successful. We had another community that imposed a wheel tax as a way of balancing their budget. So we'll continue to look at ways that we can, minimize, the shortfalls in the budget for future years and try to prolong, going to referendum as long as we can. We're hoping that we'll get some support at the state level for our spending limits, but, it's a new budget year for the state. The makeup of the state legislature is different right now, so I'm going to several meetings with our lobbyists to understand what the strategy will be. The other part of our budget is what we call our CIP, or our capital improvement projects, and those are expenses such as building maintenance, vehicles, street construction, park, trail upgrades, those types of things. And over the last several years, we've borrowed quite a bit of money for our infrastructure, so we replaced lead service lines. We did upgrades in all the areas that I mentioned. So our borrowing aspect was higher this year than it normally is, and that's going to result in a raise in the mill rate, which ultimately, combined with increased values for your homes, will raise property taxes. The tax bill will be coming out here in the next couple weeks, and you'll notice the city's portion is going up as well as the school districts, because the school district had 2 referendums in a row. And there's going to be some different procedures on the taxes when you come to City Hall this year. There'll be signs up explaining it, but basically the county has changed the software. We've acquired it, and if you come to City Hall, you can file your taxes there, and it'll get uploaded online quicker than you'll get your tax receipt. That will most likely come through an email or through the mail, or however you set that up with our finance department.
Okay. And then on the November 26th meeting, we're just going to highlight two quick things. The police union contracts.
Yeah, so there were several components of the police union contracts. The main one was really the part that they bargained for. And one of the things that was really important for the police department this year was to put in a trial period for their scheduling. So typically they worked 8-hour shifts, and they do a certain number of days on and then days off. And what they wanted to do was try a schedule where they would go to 10-hour shifts, which would give them more days off. And what we're learning, especially since the pandemic, quality of life and a work-life balance is becoming more of a priority for really everybody, especially in the police department. So as part of that 1-year trial on their schedule, they'll also have 1 day a week. It looks like it's going to be Wednesday, where everybody will work in 2 shifts, and that'll be their training day. And most of the training will be done in-house now, and we think there's going to be some efficiencies gained by that. There were some other kind of side memorandums of understanding regarding how we're going to handle the compensation for the canine police officer and some of the other detectives and some of the other positions that are a little bit unique than the patrol officers.
Okay. And then also, you guys did a cost reimbursement agreement with Alexander Company.
Yeah, so Alexander Company and then Steve Brown Associates are working together to hopefully develop the Riverfront Redevelopment Site, or the RDA site. And basically we entered into a 6-month memorandum of understanding for them to do their due diligence. So as part of that, they would put together kind of a concept plan, run it through the redevelopment authority, work with our planning department and our engineers to make sure that the stormwater, the remediation, the roads, and the buildings all meet the requirements. And then they would also obviously have to put in kind of their funding sources on their end to make sure that the project will be successful for them. So we anticipate through the course of the next several months to have them work on that plan, and then ultimately, if there's a shortfall, work with the city to use the tax incremental financing to help address that. The project itself, they're looking at two different organizations, the Alexander and then Steve Brown, to do some market rate apartments as well as some subsidized units down there. So we'd have a nice mix and give everyone that would want to live down there an opportunity to really have a nice new building and overlooking the river with all the trail systems and everything that we've been putting in place in the last several years.
All right, now we're going to move on to the December 10th City Council meeting, which is the one we are actually doing the show about. So you had the call to order and all of the other stuff. You had some presentations. Do you want to talk about some of those?
Sure. I really just would highlight that Director Brett Hebert gave his annual presentation on our processes and procedures for snow removal. It's getting to be that time of the year where, well, actually it was snowing when I walked in today. I don't think he'll have the trucks out yet, but this is the time of year that they kind of work on putting their routes together. And we really just want to explain to the city council and the community kind of the method to the madness as far as what we do to plow the roads, what the priorities are, what some of the strategies will be. And it really varies depending on the type of snowfall and the length of the snowfall. So he does a really comprehensive review. We talk a lot about conservation of the salt and being environmentally friendly as we can be, using the product, and yet make sure that the roads are safe in our community. Certainly would encourage you to watch the beginning of the meeting if you have interest on how that works. Also talked a little bit about the alternate side parking, which comes during snow emergencies. So if you haven't signed up for that, I believe they can go right on our website to do that.
Yep, it's right on our website.
So I would encourage people, if you do park on the road, to sign up for the snow emergency so you can get notified, because we don't like to issue citations, but we also want to make sure the roads are cleared off so we can, work efficiently and safely for our snowplow drivers.
All right. And then item number 6, Ordinance 21 of 2024. under old business is a second reading relating to changes to the multifamily residential zoning.
Yeah, so Director Muntz Pritchard's been working for the last several months with the City Council and the Plan Commission to begin the process of upgrading some of our ordinances. And in the past, we had different ordinances depending on the number of units. And what we wanted to do is really just focus on how many units you can get on a particular piece of property and still meet our minimum setback requirements and our landscaping requirements. And typically on an apartment, for example, we would allow 3 stories up to 4 with a conditional use permit. We don't really have any requests for that at this time, but we really wanted to simplify the process for not only the developers, but for the decision makers, the City Council and the Plan Commission, because what we've been finding is with the old codes, developers are trying to put more units on a lot than the lots might hold and meet those requirements. And what we want to do is we want to focus on the requirements, and then they can figure out a way to make it fit.
Okay. The next item was Ordinance 23 of 2024 relating to centralized mail delivery devices.
Yeah, so the federal government has a real emphasis on what we call cluster mailboxes. So in the new developments, what they would like to see is, instead of individual mailboxes for homeowners or renters, they would like to see a cluster of them in an area that has easy access. So we had to put together basically an ordinance that would help us locally legislate that. Some of the thoughts that came up is placement, especially for accessibility issues. So we're going to work through the development agreements and maybe form some sort of a zoning code to address that part of it. So far, we really haven't had any challenges with the clusters that we've put in. I know we've put some in at Nordic Ridge, for example, and some other newer developments. And the big thing for the city is we want it to be in a place where people have accessibility to it, but yet it's not on city property, because we don't want to be responsible if something happens to it. It's really there to serve the residents and the post office, not really the city. So we worked with an agreement with our interim plan director, Tim, that's been working with us, and then with our city attorney to put this ordinance together.
All right. Under new business, item number 8, resolution 169 of 2024, relating to a tiered system for park impact fees.
Yeah, so what we wanted to do is whenever we have a new development, they typically have to dedicate parkland. And as part of that dedication, they also have to provide us what we call impact fees. And impact fees are basically money that we collect per unit that pays for whatever amenities we want to put in the park. So if it's a shelter or a playground or those types of things, the impact fees pay for them. And we really haven't had a roadmap on what to do. For example, if we had a park and we had all the amenities we needed and there was money left over, where we should spend that money. Or if we have a development that's an infill where they're required to give impact fees, but there's no parkland dedication that would go with it. An example of that would be the apartments on 314 West Main Street, or even the riverfront development, because there's not going to be any major amounts of parkland dedicated with the development. So where should that money go next? And it just really outlines what the priorities should be. Obviously, if it's not using that park, whatever possible, we would use it at the next closest park and so on.
Okay. Item number 9, resolution 170, relating to an outdoor warning siren.
Yeah, so for several months, and we've been trying to come up with a new location for a siren. We received feedback from people that live out by Kettle Park West and even the edges of Nordic Ridge, where the outdoor sirens, when they go off, they can't really hear them. And it's important for people to understand that these are outdoor sirens. So, if there is an emergency, weather emergency, and you're outside, the idea is to go inside and use your cell phone devices or your radios to monitor the situation. So we've been looking for a location to install the siren. We've had it ordered in here, and EMS Fire Chief Rip has been able to find a location, working with the planning department and with Public Works in the county to install a siren. We anticipate we'll need another one kind of on closer to the Stoughton trailer site as we grow more toward kind of the northwest area to get better coverage out there. There is some overlapping. Dane County has kind of a map system. You can go on there and it shows you where the diameters of the radius that these sirens cover, and we obviously have some spots that need to be fulfilled, and it costs about $30,000 to purchase and install these, so we're hoping to get that installed here soon.
All right, item number 10, a discussion regarding an increase in future aldermanic salaries.
Yeah, so one of the alders had brought up the fact that we really haven't increased alder salaries for, I don't know, probably at least a decade or two. And so what we've done is we've gathered salaries, not just for alders, but for all positions from other municipalities. And the city council directed the finance committee to go through that and come up with some potential recommendations. The thought is most alders really don't do it for the money, but there might be other people out in the community that would like to serve, but financially it's not feasible, especially if they need daycare and things like that. So we just really had direction to take a look at that. The way it would work, it would basically, you cannot raise an alder's salary in the middle of their term, so it would be kind of phased in over tiers over the course of several elections.
Okay. Item number 11, Resolution 171 relating to a conditional use permit for 1025 West Main Street.
Yeah, so 1025 West Main Street used to be Robert's Auto Electric, and it was purchased by Dan Spurloin. He also owns Main Page Auto, and he'd like to open up another shop there. And in order to do that, we have to do an approval through the conditional use permit. Really wasn't any issues. One of the suggestions is that we put a tree out in the terrace area there. It's kind of a unique area in that intersection there because at one point both of the buildings were owned by the same family, and now that we're splitting them off, we're recommending that they have some sort of a driveway easement agreement between the two parties.
All right. And the last item on the agenda was an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding with the Smet Foundation for 532 East Main Street.
Yeah, so if you watch the beginning of the meeting, you'll see a presentation from the Smet Foundation. They were born and raised in Stoughton. I think they currently live out west, and they would like to do kind of an extension of our Main Street into the railroad corridor area, which the city's been wanting to do for many years, and make that kind of an arts district. We already have Able Contemporary and Grand Inspired in that area, as well as some others on Main Street. And they're looking to acquire a couple buildings to execute a plan to provide studios and galleries and potentially some housing in the future. So that's all part of the presentation. And basically the action item last night, which was discussed and ultimately we came out of closed session and approved it, was to do a 3-month memorandum of understanding for them to do their due diligence. We expect at the end of the 3 months that they'll either move forward and try to acquire a couple buildings, including the building that currently houses the Chamber of Commerce and some artifacts from the Historical Society and the depot building by the railroad tracks. So we're looking at, what that might look like and what a relocation plan could look like for those that are currently working out of that building.
All right. That's all we had for the December 10th, 2024 City Council meeting. Glad you were able to join us to recap the last three. We'll see you in a couple weeks for more council catch-up. Have a great day.